Last time I promised we'd be doing music, so let's do music. I have already imported the music. This is the main game theme. They are set to streaming audio. That's something you definitely want to do for any long piece of audio. You don't want the user to have to load that in. That's load time, and nobody likes that. So streaming will bring that in on demand. You know I'm a fan of the self-instantiating Singleton. So that is, of course, what I've done. Here is my MusicManager script. There's only 4 songs for this game, and I think designer friendly would be to label them as such. So I've just carefully labeled them according to their purpose, and then given them a name that matches that. Truth be told, I'm the designer for this project. I'm the one entering all of this data. So maybe a programmer-friendly way to do it, which would be like an array, would make sense. But I'm sticking to this same paradigm as if I was working on a small team. The downside of doing it this way is that now we will need something to translate in between the designer-friendly name then and to invoke them individually, as opposed to if I just had an array. That would be a tiny little function to just play a song, perhaps by index. Let's take a look at that self-instantiating technique first. To play a song, you're going to need to get the MusicManager and then call play on it. So when you get the MusicManager, the first thing we do is ask, do we have a MusicManager? If we don't have one, then we will go and load one out of the resources folder. That's a technique that I've shown before for like loading in enemies, for example. I'm using the same thing. That's going to allow us to have public variables that are tunable and tweakable in the Unity editor, and then we can save those as a prefab in the resources folder. We can load in that prefab and then instantiate an instance of it. I then mark it as do not destroy, and we'll grab that as the manager. The thinking here is that we don't need to place one in the scene. In fact, with this particular code, it's not legal to place one in the scene. You just put it in the resources folder, and anyone who needs to place a music just calls MusicManager get, and that will go and get the MusicManager and create one. Okay, so then finally, I guess, well, as long as we're in here, let's look at how to play a song. Playing a song simply stops whatever song is currently playing and then begins playing the requested song. Let's see the prefab that I have already created. It's in the resources folder. Here is the MusicManager. It's just a single object, and I have already hooked up the 4 songs that are going to be available in the game. I have also used this opportunity to point the output of the audio source to a mixer, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So then let's look at how have I set this up to play the music at the correct times. I have set up the GameManager to have states for the various modes of gameplay. The main menu has one song, and then during the game there's another song. Game over will just continue playing the game song until it transitions either back to a new game or to main menu. When you invoke a state, I have it simply playing the song that is appropriate there. This is one of the things I was stressing in the summer session last time we met, which is decoupling the features. So the GameManager decides which song to play when, but it does so simply by invoking a function on the MusicManager and allows the MusicManager to handle the details of how that works. And this is how we avoid those giant script functions that are thousands of lines long, is by just giving one small responsibility to each of those individual scripts. So by using the getter here, that's that self-instantiating Singleton, where I don't need to manually place one in the scene. I don't need to link my GameManager to my MusicManager. I don't have to worry about that. I just say, get me the MusicManager and tell it to play this song. So I can just simply fire and forget that in the one line, and the job is done. Let's hear that music. Here's the menu scene playing the menu music, and when I hit new game, it should transition into the game music. So that's just about everything we need for the music player. One other thing we will want to control is the volume of the music. I haven't set up the pause menu yet, but I know there's one coming. And on that menu, we're going to have a music volume slider separate from our sound effects slider. So how are we going to do that? I've encountered students before, a lot of times they want to just control the volume right here on this thing, and you can do that through script. You can hook that up and that'll be fine, except how are you going to do the same trick with all your sound effects when there are hundreds of sound effects all over the place, and you really don't want to have to try to keep track of all of those and create sliders for all of those things. Instead, in Unity, what you want to do is create a mixer. You just come down here, right click, and create yourself an audio mixer. And I've got one right there. I've created the audio mixer already. And let's open that up and see what we've got in there. If we bring up the audio mixer window, we can see what we've got. Here's our mixer. I've just called it mixer. And it has 3 audio groups. You can see here the groups. You just select the one you want, and then you can create a subgroup from that. So like subgroup. Okay, and that creates a new audio group. I don't want that one, so let's get rid of it. Let's remove it. I just want 2 subgroups for this game. The game is very simple. I have music and then everything else. For a more complex, layered music environment, maybe you'll want more controls. This is a great way to give your audio team that kind of control. Do they want to control the ambient sounds or the voice or the HUD or the explosions, maybe as its own group? That allows your audio team to come in here and adjust the balance, which is something that's what they're going to want to focus on a lot, is the balance, not just of individual sounds, but of entire categories of sound. I guess that leaves us with just the one question of how do we hook our sounds to these various groups. The Music Manager I have connected to the music group simply by dragging this music group and dropping it onto the audio source for the Music Manager. However, for sound effects, I don't have a pre-placed audio source anywhere at all. That's created on the fly in the script. A sound instance has an audio source on it, and that audio source is created right here. And I need to simply connect the output audio mixer group to my group. Where did I get that group from? In case you missed the video on this, my sound effects are pooled objects. So I create several instances, apparently 128 instances of sound players at startup time. And so the first thing I'm going to want to do is create that pool. And when I'm creating the pool, which is the 128 instances of sounds, at that time I just added in here to go and load out of the resources folder the mixer, and from that mixer grab the group called SFX. The function available for that in Unity gives you back an array, and I know that there's only one in there, so I'm not going to worry about the fact that it's an array. I'm just going to pull the first one out of the array and call that good enough for my purposes. So that's how I get the group in this case, and I'm just going to apply that group. Whenever I initialize a sound, I go ahead and make sure the mixer group is set to sound effects. Now, to control the volume of all sounds, whether they've already started or they will start in the future, I simply need to control the volume of the SFX group, and that will allow me to set up that pause menu. Okay, what I will do is adjust the volume of the music. And I can also adjust the volume of the sound effects separately. One of the complaints I've gotten with the Unity audio system is it does not allow you to take the volume of an individual sound past 100%, but this allows you to violate that rule. You can do that using a audio mixer group. So that's it for music. We saw another example of a self-instantiating prefab where you create a prefab, put it in resources folder, and then load that on demand, and how that allows you to use a getter function to access the functions within there without having to link them up manually, which is something that I really like. We also saw how to create a mixer and how to connect either through the prefab your mixer group into your audio, or how to load that out of the resources folder programmatically. And we stressed that's going to allow us to create separate volume controls for different categories of sounds. In our case, we just have the two sounds, music and everything else. I think that about wraps it up for today, so I'll see you out there.